what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today Blizzard has finally announced that World of Warcraft Dragonflight is available for pre-order with a launch date of December 31st of this year as the actual latest launch date. And with that announcement, a lot of people have a lot of mixed feelings, a lot of questions about where is Season 4 at, what is going on with the current raid, when is Alpha, when is Beta, what is going on with such a short timetable testing-wise. So tonight's video, I guess today's video, depending on whenever this launches, is going to be a little different. I want to talk a little bit about Alpha Beta testing, where I think Season 4 and Alpha will probably launch, and then where I think Dragonflight could potentially, maybe, possibly, actually land as far as launch dates and things are concerned. Now, I'll admit, I'm incredibly hyped about Dragonflight. I've been looking for any kind of content for a long time about Alpha, Beta, or talent trees, and I'm hoping that with this being, put up for pre-order, it means that Blizzard's most likely going to be releasing talent trees, I would hope, over the next few weeks, and then maybe getting into an Alpha Beta cycle pretty soon. And fingers crossed, we're also in the actual first wave of Alpha Beta. The baseline version brings the game, I believe a Drakthir pet, and the ability to play Evokers, I believe during pre-patch, which is what Blizzard mentioned would be available, which I assume probably somewhere in December. The Heroic Edition, which is $70, brings all that, plus a 60 boost, Flying Mount, which is pretty cool, and the Merkstraza pet. And the $90 edition brings all that, plus a new Hearthstone, 5 variations of a Cloak Wing Transmog, which is great, as completed my actual Transmog, and a monthly game time. So, with all that being said, I'm just going to jump right into it, talking a bit about, I guess, Season 4, Alpha Beta cycles, hopefully date-wise, and just get into it. Once again, this video is going to be a little different than usual. I'm hoping for Warlock talent trees soon, but I got a lot of questions about what's going on, what are my thoughts on Season 4, Alpha Beta, and the actual early release date, and I think this is the best way to talk about them. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So I think the biggest question that everybody has with the December 31st latest date being announced today and pre-order being available is like, how does this affect actual Season 4? Because Season 4 really hasn't been on PTR for very long. There's a lot of things like loot that hasn't been addressed, eye levels, certain things aren't even working properly. And June, I'm going to consider essentially over at this point. We're in July for simplicity's sake. And if we have the actual expansion coming out in December, that means that essentially we're looking at July, August, September, October, November, and December, which is 6 months, half a year, from I guess 6.5, depending however you look at it, because July 1st and December 31st, from where we are right now, which if you think back to Shadowlands Alpha Beta, I believe it was about 6 months before the actual pushback happened due to COVID and things like that. So I think we can take some subtle hints from, maybe not so subtle hints, from the mass sweeping nerfs we've seen to the raid over the past couple weeks. The Jailer's been nerfed multiple times. Rygalon, Halandris, Rygalon, the Jailer, Anduin is the most nerfed boss in this game's history, and it's not even close. And this raid overall is the most nerfed raid this game has ever seen. I mean, maybe barring going back to like vanilla WoW, which it's whatever, right? Modern WoW, like probably Pandaria up, Kata up. This is the most nerfed raid this game has ever seen. But I think Blizzard is feeling a bit of heat, partially because typically, final tier cutting edges last a very long time. Look back to Nilotha, it was like 13 months, I think. WoD was 18 years. Legion was, I don't remember, but it was a while, right? You have that final tier and you have that final cutting edge lasting a long time. It goes until the pre-patch of the new expansion. But that's not the case with Season 4. Cutting edge is going away in Season 4. Both AOTC and cutting edge are, but you're still able to obtain the AOTC mount because it's an item that drops from the actual boss. But what I'm getting at, cutting edge is gone in X amount of months or weeks, depending on whenever S4 comes out. Now, Blizzard has hinted that Season 4 could very well be a shorter season, and looking at the actual timetable before launch, that hinting was pretty accurate. So I would assume with the sweeping nerfs we've seen to the final few bosses in the raid, Blizzard wants to give guilds that are working towards cutting edge and have a realistic goal of getting cutting edge a chance to get it, right? Now, I'm going to be honest, like, listen, everybody raids at a different level. That's totally fine. Not a big deal. If your guild is working on Mythic the Sausage right now, you're probably not getting cutting edge. If you're working on Pantheon, you're probably not getting cutting edge. That's okay. If you're working on Anduin, maybe just kill them. You've got Lords of Dread, you've got Rygalon, and you've got the Jailer. And the Jailer nerfs have been pretty wild, a little bit excessive. I think the final set was. But at the same time, that fight is still going to be hundreds of pulls for a lot of guilds. Phase 1 of that fight is extremely tough. There's a lot of just overlaps, this, that, a lot of pass check fail mechanics. And the nerfs make some failures like Torment, getting hit by a Tormentor, some hiccups along the way, a bit more forgiving. But if you miss, a heal, or you miss this, or you mess that up, or you get mind controlled, that's still a death. That's still an MC. That's still less heals on the planet. You're still in trouble. The fight's still a few hundred pull boss for guilds are getting to it now. But I do think it's an indicator that Season 4 is probably going to be here sooner than later. And I thought that even way before today. So let's say we're essentially in July at this point. I would assume that a realistic timetable for guilds to get cutting edge in a Killing Anduin, Lords of Dread-esque kind of prog setting right now is probably like a month and a half to 2 months from where we are now. So if we're looking at the exact date, I mean, you've got like a week here. Like 6 months is probably putting us like at the earliest end of July, like this week here, going into August, like first week of August, second week of August. Probably at the, I think personally at the latest, this is the farthest we're going to see Season 4. I don't think we go past this date personally. This is like, what, 2 months from where we are now? I think it's a bit excessive. And if we get to this point, that means you essentially have September, October, November, and then if the actual expansion itself does come out in December, and we're not talking pre-patch in December, you've got 3 months of Season 4. Now, they did hint it would be a shorter season, but that's a very short season when you're bringing back 8 dungeons, 3 raids, and just a lot of content they want to see rehashed and replayed and get some actual, I guess, value out of it, depending how you want to look at it. So, like, my bet personally for Season 4 is probably, like I said, somewhere in here, like this week in July, probably at the earliest, into like here, first week of August, second week of August, maybe getting into third week. Now, I think the biggest question on everyone's mind, though, is when are we actually getting Dragonflight Alpha and Beta and all the testing? And that sort of leads into where we're at now, which is June, essentially July, and having about 6 to 6.5 months of testing, which I fully understand the skepticism of having 6.5 months, 6 months, whatever, because we're not even in alpha yet at this point. And looking back at how Shadowlands ended up going during beta, how BFA ended up going during beta, and people are extrapolating that out thinking 6 months is not enough time. I think there's, and listen, I'm not being paid by Blizz, obviously, or anything like that, right? But I think there's some common misconception with, like, there's some weird thing when it comes to, even myself sort of included in this, when it's like, I hear, oh, 6 months, like, and some weird misconception, if the game launches within, like, 1 to 6 months of testing on beta, it's terrible. But if it's 6 months in 1 day or more, it's going to be insane. The fact of the matter is, like, no one knows how far along Blizz is testing-wise, or development-wise with Dragonflight. Now, looking back at the track record of PTR or betas that have been 6-ish less months, it's not the best. We've had Shadowlands, which had COVID pushbacks, just in general wasn't the best expansion, I think personally. Even BFA and other cycles in the past have had some awkwardness too with shorter PTRs. But Blizzard has literally admitted during like the actual deep dive for Dragonflight that, you know, mistakes were made during Shadowlands Alpha and Beta, and there should have been more feedback taken into account. Now, at the same time, we've also heard that a million times where feedback's been taken into account a bunch, or we will take it into account, and it never happens, and lo and behold, we get Shadowlands. Now, the thing here, my take on this is that Shadowlands, it was like a 6.5 month alpha or beta. But the thing is, Shadowlands could have been 6 months, 6 weeks, or 6 years in beta. It didn't matter because there was no feedback taken into account, right? Conduit energy, covenants not being swappable, soul mines being weird, all that stuff. That was a fundamental design issue, which feedback was given on, and it wasn't taken into account. And when it was given, it was like, oh yeah, well, I mean this in the nicest way possible. It was more about, yeah, we're right, you're wrong, you'll see. And in the end, well, I mean, obviously, we know what happened. Nobody played the game, right? There wasn't a, oh, I have no energy today, I'll play X spec in Mythic Plus or X spec in the raid. I just won't play the game. Nobody played the game, right? 9.0 and 9.1 would have been completely different patches, races to world first, PvP. The game would have been different if that feedback had been taken into account during alpha and beta. A completely different expansion, albeit a relatively dry one content-wise, but a completely different expansion, having 4 covenants, having insane conduit energy, swap whatever you want. It would have been very, very different, made for a much better player experience, which, once again, that comes from the lack of feedback being taken into account from Blizzard during alpha and beta testing. So, personally, like, the actual December 31st launch date, I don't really care a whole lot about. I'm excited for it. I'm a little skeptical. I'm cautiously optimistic, and I fully understand the overall skepticism of the community when it comes to the release date. But I don't think a 0 to 6 month timetable makes the game terrible, or longer than that makes it great. I think Blizz knows this is the final chance that they really have for the most part. Even if this expansion flops, WoW won't die officially, but I think they really know that this is probably like, okay, we have to get this right. This is probably our final chance for a lot of players. We know Shadowlands were to flop. Dragonflight is the going home to Azeroth expansion. It is the one where it's like, okay, this is what everybody wants. We have to get this right. And player feedback is very important. Now, there's good feedback and there's bad feedback, but the willingness to take that feedback into account, interact with the player base during alpha, beta, and just testing in general is solid. We saw early on developer interviews during Shadowlands alpha and beta. I believe Preach had one, Mr. GM, a couple other people as well. And then when that final one happened about Conduit Energy, I think they just sort of stopped, and we really didn't have them anymore. And, you know, lo and behold, here we are. So I'm not saying the player base is always right, because we're not. But at the same time, like when there's an overwhelming majority of the player base saying, hey, this should probably happen, because X, Y, and Z are going to happen from this, based off of this, I think it needs to be taken into account. So I don't think a 6-month or sub 6-month time frame is a death sentence for the game at all. I really, truly don't. But I do think that feedback is the most important part. They could be much further along with the game developmentally than we think they are, right? I think the first build of beta we had for Shadowlands was like half a Bastion quest-wise. We got like Bastion, then Maldraxxus, then the other zones. I forget what they were. It took like a month and a half to get them. They very well could launch all the zones when the actual beta hits or alpha hits, right? So we got to wait and see. I think it's way too early to make an assessment of, oh, this is too fast, because we just don't know. There's no information out there whatsoever, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But so as far as alpha is concerned and the launch date, I am hoping and praying that it's within like the next month or so. Now, there's been some weird dates floating around. We've seen it on Twitter and things, people trolling about mid-July, and I thought personally that was a little bit excessive. I thought it might have been out before then, because Blizz did mention they want talent trees out before alpha and beta hit, and we had the DK trees and the druid trees come out probably a month ago at this point, but then it's been mostly radio silence since then. So I'm hoping with this announcement that we get some talent trees over the next week and a half or so, and I'm hoping that mid-July launch date is actually relevant, or I guess alpha beta is actually real. I would assume, like, I mean, probably somewhere this week, possibly, maybe here, earlier. The sooner the better, because I also don't want alpha beta overshadowed by season 4, or really the other way around, because if we get season 4 before alpha, the second alpha hits, season 4 is ghost town. People will play it, but I mean, like, it's way overshadowed by Dragonflight, and yeah, so we'll see where it goes. I'm just excited, though, in general. So, like, overall, I'm optimistic, a little skeptical, but cautiously optimistic about the December 31st release date. I have a slight hunch that the December 31st release date might not happen, but at the same time, it could just be a pre-patch, because theoretically, isn't pre-patch a part of an expansion? It's like 10.0. It's 10.0, right? And if, number one, they release an expansion over Christmas, I don't want a Race to World first over Christmas. Number two, it's sort of unfortunate to have developers working over the holidays and things. But like a December 15th pre-patch, giving you like a few weeks to, you know, do what you need to do, play your Evoker, get it geared up, the holidays are here, into like a January 10th, 15th, end of January launch, sounds so good. The holidays are over, New Year's is over, people are home, people are back in the office, then it launches, then the race in February. That sounds awesome to me. Whether it's rushed or not, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But if Blizz thinks that their timetable of December 31st is right, whether it's, you know, for a pre-patch or an actual game, I don't think they put it out there publicly, looking at how Shadowlands went, and even BFA to a certain extent. I'm pretty sure if they put the date out there, they're confident they can make that deadline, whatever it is. So, cautiously optimistic. A bit curious if it's an actual pre-patch in December, but either way, I'm hopeful for Dragonflight, and hoping for some kind of alpha beta within the next month or so. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I know this video is a bit different than what I usually do when it comes to like Warlock stuff or PvE-based things and all that, but I'm pumped for Dragonflight. I'm excited, and I got this question a million times on stream tonight, which is fine, people weren't there when I answered it before the past 10,000 times, but I thought making a video on it tonight would be good. It'd be cool. People are pumped for it as well. And yeah, we just go from there. So like I said, I am skeptically optimistic about the tentative December 31st, like end of year release date at the latest. I think they can do it. If Blizz says that, if Blizz said it and they know the history of Shadowlands and BFA and those releases, I would assume they're very confident they can make that actual date, even though it might be a pre-patch and, you know, all that. But we will, we'll see. The biggest thing, honestly, is alpha beta testing and feedback. There's always plenty of feedback out there. There's plenty for Shadowlands, but it can't be a we're right and you're wrong thing. There's good feedback and there's bad feedback, but filtering through the feedback and separating the good from the bad is the important part and what needs to be done. And what will be different, if that's the case, from Shadowlands, from BFA, from previous times this has happened in the past. And if that's the case, Dragonflight can be an insane expansion. It looks really, really good just based on what we saw initially. And I'm hoping with the actual like seasonal dungeon rotation and things that it keeps things fresh, exciting, and just feeling the way that WoW used to be. You know, also content in a shorter cycle than every 10 months. That would be pretty sick too. I'm not saying getting back to Legion every 70 days, having a new patch, whether it's a big patch or a 0.5. I'd take that, but I'm really hoping that Dragonflight is the expansion when WoW gets back on track. Shadowlands, we can call it a bump in the road, maybe a large bump, BFA being a small one, but hey, we're going back to Azeroth, and that's hands down what I'm most excited about. So, but yeah, like I said, thanks for watching, guys. Now, if you guys have any thoughts on this, which I'm sure some people will, feel free to drop them down below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to get back to you. I'm sure there's going to be some hot takes down there, but that's okay, because this is a bit of a controversial announced date, and I expect that. So keep in mind, this is just my opinion, and I'm trying to look at it as a glass half full thing, not because it's my job, because I think it looks pretty cool. It has a pretty good premise if it works out well, but, you know, we'll see. Feedback's important, and well, all that. So thanks for watching, guys. Before I end, I want to give one huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys a million times for all support. I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, it should be linked up here as well as down in the video description below. And yeah, thanks again, dudes. With all that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.